안녕하세요. 성경으로 영어 발음 교정하는 성경 발음입니다. 한 단어 한 단어 소리내어 따라하시면 발음이 교정되며 영어 실력 향상에 도움이 됩니다. 한 절 한 절 표준 속도로 읽고 한 단어씩 발음 교정해 드리겠습니다. 오늘은 Genesis chapter 8 창세기 8장을 같이 읽어보도록 하겠습니다. The flood recedes. The flood recedes. The flood recedes. 1장 But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede. But God remembered. remember가 아니라 여기서 R 글자가 있기 때문에 최대한 굴려주시기를 바랍니다. remembered 여기도 마찬가지예요. remembered but God remembered Noah and all the 여기서 굴리시면 안 됩니다. 그냥 어예요. the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth. And the flood waters began to recede. 2절 The underground 여기서 th 다음으로 오는 단어가 a, e, i, o, u로 시작하면은 이 th는 d입니다. the가 아니라 d예요. The underground waters stopped flowing and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. The underground waters stopped flowing. 여기는 S 발음으로 끝나고 S 발음으로 다음 단어가 시작하기 때문에 그냥 이어주시면 됩니다. Waters stopped flowing and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. 3절 So the flood waters gradually receded from the earth after 150 days, exactly 5 months from the time the flood began. The boat came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. So the flood waters, gradually, receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months, from the time the flood began, the boat came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. 5절. 2.5 months later, as the waters continued to go down, other mountain peaks became visible. 2.5 months later, as the waters continued to go down, other mountain peaks became visible. 6절. After another 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the boat and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until the flood waters on the earth had dried up. After another 40 days, 40 아니면 40라고 하셔도 됩니다. 40 days. Noah opened the window he had made in the boat, and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until이 아닙니다. until the flood waters on the earth had dried up. had dried up. 8절. He also released a dove to see if the water had receded and it could find dry ground. He also also가 아닙니다. also도 아니에요. 여기는 R 글자가 없기 때문에 그리시면 안 됩니다. He also released a dove to see if the water had receded and it could find dry ground. D랑 R이랑 붙어 있을 때 드 발음이 아닙니다. 드라이가 아니라 주 발음에 더 가깝습니다. 주. D랑 R이랑 붙었을 때 dry. 드라이가 아닙니다. dry입니다. 마찬가지로 drive 드라이브가 아니라 drive 운전하다 drive 주 발음에 더 가깝습니다. D랑 R이랑 붙었을 때 꼭 기억하세요. 9절 But the dove could find no place to land because the water still covered the ground. So it returned to the boat and Noah held out his hand and drew the dove back inside. 여기도 D랑 R이랑 붙어있네요. drew. 자, 9절 천천히 읽어드리겠습니다. But the dove could find no place to land because the water still covered the ground. So it returned to the boat and Noah held out his hand and drew the dove back inside. 10절 After waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. After waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. Released the 디귿 발음으로 끝나고 디귿 발음으로 시작하기 때문에 여기서는 그냥 이어주시면 돼요. Release the released the dove again. 11절. This time the dove returned to him in the evening, in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Then Noah knew that the flood waters were almost gone. This time, the dove return to 여기도 마찬가지예요. 디귿 발음으로 끝나고 디귿 발음으로 시작하기 때문에 이어주시면 됩니다. Return to him in the evening. 여기서는 D예요. A-E-I-O-U로 시작하는 단어가 이 TH 이후에 오게 되면 이 TH는 D라고 발음합니다. The evening with a fresh olive leaf, a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Then Noah knew that the flood waters were almost gone. almost가 아닙니다. 여기는 al 글자가 없기 때문에 굴리시면 안 돼요. almost gone. 12절. He waited another 7 days and then released the dove again. 여기도 released the 이어주시면 돼요. 디귿 발음으로 끝나고 디귿 발음으로 시작하기 때문에 release the dove again. This time it did not come back. 13절. Noah was now 601 years old. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the flood waters had almost dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. Noah was now 601 years old. 601 years old. old가 아닙니다. 여기도 R 글자가 없기 때문에 절대로 굴리시면 안 돼요. old, 오, 우, 그 다음에 살짝 디귿 발음으로 마무리해 주시면 됩니다. old. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the flood waters had almost dried D랑 어이랑 붙었을 때 주 발음입니다. 주, 드가 아니에요. dried up from the earth. Up from the earth. Noah lifted back. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat. Covering of the boat. And saw that the surface of the ground of the ground was drying. 드라잉이 아닙니다. 여기는 주 발음이에요. 주. drying. 14절. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. The earth was dry. 15절. Then God said to Noah, leave the boat, all of you, you and your wife, and your sons and their wives. Then God said to Noah, leave the boat, all of you, all, 그냥 어에 더 가깝습니다. 힘드시면 굴리지 말고 라고 그냥 발음하시면 됩니다. All of you, you and your wife, you and your wife, and your sons, and their wives, their wives. 17절. Release all the animals, the birds, the livestock, and the small animals that scurry along the ground, so they can be fruitful and multiply throughout the earth. Release all the animals, the birds, the livestock, and the small small이 아닙니다. 절대 small이라고 발음하시면 안 돼요. 여기 얼 글자가 없습니다. 얼 글자가 없을 때는 발음을 굴리지 마시기를 바랍니다. small animals that scurry along the ground. Scurry along the ground. So they can be fruitful and multiply throughout, throughout, throughout the earth, throughout the earth. 18절. So Noah, his wife, and his sons, and their wives left the boat. So Noah, his wife, and his sons, 이 s를 이 단어랑 his랑 sons로 이으시면 됩니다. s 발음으로 끝나고 s 발음으로 시작하기 때문에 his sons and their wives left the boat. 19절. And all of the large and small animals and birds came out of the boat, pair by pair. And all of the large and small 굴리시면 안 돼요. R 글자가 없어요. small animals and birds came out of the boat pair by pair. 20절. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and there he sacrificed as burnt offerings the animals and birds that had been approved for that purpose. Then Noah built, built가 아닙니다. 여기도 R 글자가 없기 때문에 굴리시면 안 돼요. Built an altar to the Lord, and there he sacrificed as burnt offerings the animals and birds that had been approved for that purpose. 21절. And the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice and said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of the human race, even though everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood. I will never again destroy all living things. And the Lord was 이 S 발음이 스가 아니라요. 이 소리입니다. was pleased with the aroma 여기는 D죠. 다음 오는 단어가 A로 시작하기 때문에 A, E, I, O, U로 시작하는 단어면 the aroma of the sacrifice and said to himself himself가 아닙니다. himself and said to himself I will. 여기도 굴리시면 안 돼요. I will never again curse the ground because of the human race even though everything 음절 세 개입니다. everything이 아니라 everything 하나 둘 셋 everything they think or imagine is bent toward 이것도 표준 속도로 읽게 되면은 T 발음으로 끝나고 T 발음으로 시작하기 때문에 이어주시면 됩니다. bent toward 이렇게 읽어주시면 됩니다. bent toward evil from childhood child가 아닙니다. 여기도 얼글자가 없기 때문에 굴리시면 안 돼요. childhood I will never again destroy 여기도 tr T랑 R이랑 붙었을 때는 chew 발음입니다. t가 아니라 destroy가 아니라 chew에 더 가깝습니다. destroy 음절 두 개예요. destroy 이건 5개인데 이거는 잘못된 방식입니다. destroy 음절 두 개입니다. destroy all living things 22절 As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. As long as the earth remains, the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, cold가 아닙니다. cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. 제가 표준 속도로 처음부터 8장을 읽어드리겠습니다. The flood recedes, but God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede. The underground waters stopped flowing, and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the flood waters gradually receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months from the time the flood began, the boat came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. 2.5 months later, as the waters continued to go down, other mountain peaks became visible. After another 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the boat and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until the flood waters on the earth had dried up. He also released a dove to see if the water had receded and it could find dry ground. But the dove could find no place to land because the water still covered the ground. So it returned to the boat, and Noah held out his hand and drew the dove back inside. After waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. This time the dove returned to him in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Then Noah knew that the flood waters were almost gone. He waited another 7 days and then released the dove again. This time it did not come back. Noah was now 601 years old. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the flood waters had almost dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Leave the boat, all of you, you and your wife, and your sons and their wives. Release all the animals, the birds, the livestock, and the small animals that scurry along the ground, so they can be fruitful and multiply throughout the earth." So Noah, his wife, and his sons and their wives left the boat, and all of the large and small animals and birds came out of the boat, pair by pair. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and there he sacrificed as burnt offerings the animals and birds that had been approved for that purpose. And the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice, and said to himself, "I will never again curse the ground because of the human race, even though everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood. I will never again destroy all living things. As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night." 많은 도움이 되셨기를 바랍니다. 감사합니다.